One more question?
Just wondering if you guys paint your own pieces. A lot of times it seems to me like in Clay you did the puppeteer piece, and the dark puppeteer, the painting on that made that piece pop.
That piece was actually painted by an amazing prototype painter named Jim Rowell out of Fort Worth, Texas, and we worked together for some years. My brother Paul Komoda, I consider him the best in the business. I do not paint figures, and never will. I leave it to the guys who know it, because it's something that you just continually get better and better and better. And I know there's some fantastic painters, and there may be up here, but I don't paint my own pieces. I art direct them. I know what I want, you know. And Jim and I have gone. It has taken a while sometimes to get what I want, because I've got to make sure that it's appropriate to what the client expects to see, and the client expects to see what his collectors and fans are going to want to see. Same thing that Jim Fletcher runs into.
Yeah, invariably with our stuff, Jarrod, for our resin kits, if we're going to do an ad, Jarrod paints the resin kit for the ad, and I come in the room, I look at it, and I say, let's send it off to our guy every time. And he looks at me with hurt puppy dog eyes, and we send it off to our guy. But it's not something, you know, we're really good at, and there are guys who are really good at it.
Yeah, there are people who really specialize at it.
Exactly.
Do you guys feel complete when you see a paint job on it, or is it like complete before? Like for me, whenever I sculpt, I paint everything. Like all my prototypes and everything is all, and I really feel a sense of like full circle when I've got paint on sculpt. Because sometimes you look at sculpt and go, like it can be kind of okay, but it can be really crappy with a bad paint job, and I don't want someone else painting my piece.
It can completely transform something.
Yeah.
You know, Amazing Figure Modeler put one of our kits on the cover recently on Noinub, and David Fisher there did a paint job that was brilliant. It was totally unlike anything, you know, we had in mind for the piece. We loved it, but it totally transformed the whole thing. So it's cool to see when you're doing resin kits, the resin kits specifically, you start seeing pictures on the web or what have you, people send you of the pieces painted differently. It's rocking, we love it.
I think paint actually is one of the most important aspects of it. And I paint all my own characters and all my creature stuff. It is the other half of a design to me. The first half is that sculpture, that form, and that character. The color adds another dimension to it that can make or break it. E.T. looked like it was sculpted with a fork. I know because I've seen the head in person. As a matter of fact, I have one at my studio, one of the originals out of the mold that was used in the film. My friend Craig Reardon gave it to me. Craig painted it, and it looked alive on film. So I don't think that the power of paintwork on a sculpture can be underestimated. It is the other half of the work.
There's a whole reworking of bronze though as well. You realize that a lot of times, you know, guys will sculpt and recess the eyes so like the bronze picks up and whatnot. You guys have bronzes, guys.
Yes.
I mean, how do you feel about that? I mean, the sculpting work to work towards bronze more so than paint.
Clay, speak about that.
There's nothing, I come from that background, and this is a commercial industry. This is commercial art that we're all talking about. The beauty of it is when you can bring something of yourself or a fine sort of fine art aesthetic to what you're doing. But essentially this is commercial art, and the paint, everything has to translate to the market and to the buyer. Fine art is also commercial in that you're trying to sell your art, otherwise you're not going to be able to stay in it. But I'm more of a traditionalist with bronze. The color is very, very important, but I try to do an organic, traditional coloration to it. To me, a paint job for the resin pieces is never going to be as beautiful as a fine art bronze patina. Maybe that's because that's what I came from, but there's a permanence and a beauty to bronze that I think that is hard to surpass. I actually like to see my own work in the original material, in the gray, just before baking it. And by the way, sculpting to me is, the reason I use it is because it's as close to plasticine as oil-based clay as possible. That's why I use it. I use it also because you can bake it and harden it. That's the advantage it has over oil-based clay. There's a permanence to it, and it's not going to deform if there's a problem in the mold making process. but I actually like to see my work the most in the original grade, the original material I first sculpted in.
Just real quick answers. Do you guys find that you finish all your detailing in clay, or do you transfer over to wax to do some of the finest detailing sometimes?
I don't transfer to wax at all. We finish it in super sculpting.
Yeah, only on occasion have I done that. Mostly for work in the toy industry, where we started usually with a Chabon prototype and then we transferred it to wax.
Anybody else? Alvin?
For Clay just touched on this, but I come from a fine art background and only recently started doing the commercial stuff. But I would like to bring some of that fine art stuff into it. I bring models into my studio and use them to actually get form correct and stuff. Do you think really there's room for that sort of stuff, for traditional stuff in that industry, or does it need to be further emphasized and like over-exaggerated, or is there room for bringing realism into the commercial industry?
Well, that could be a whole other panel, that discussion, but
Yeah, it is.
you know,
I think
It begins with that. It always begins with
Yeah.
that. I'm romanticizing the human form. That's what I'm doing.
But
So,
it's a timeline, basically. I mean, if you can pull in something that's finely finessed and beautiful, if you can do it within a certain amount of time, that's fantastic, especially if the client is that's what they're looking for. Most times, though, I think that depending upon where you're looking at, if you're going to do original pieces, yeah, you know, push it, knock it right over the edge. But if you plan on making like a living within some of this stuff, sometimes, I hate to say there's a professional hack mentality to some of this stuff, but you do kind of have to go, all right, switch in, that's going to take me 5 hours, 2 hours, 4 hours to snap this down. That's,
you know.
so you kind of put your love in where you think, portrait, something like that.
It's a weird discussion. Where I come from, you know, aesthetically, I look at a lot of fine art, but I prefer the guys up here on this panel, you know, to fine art, most fine art guys. I mean, Claymore can just sculpt better than most of those guys. The modern guys, I mean, you know what I mean? And I don't know, I'm not even exactly sure what the definition is, you know what I mean? I prefer this kind of stuff.
Trying to say it's just not realistic.
Okay, one more.
Clay, since this is Comic-Con, I gotta ask you, is that Thor Silver Surfer piece ever gonna make it to the light of day?
Good question.
let's talk about a Thor Silver Surfer that I did with Dynamic Forces. Nick Brucci approached me to do a series of Marvel pieces with him, and one of the favorite images of mine was Silver Surfer #4. The piece was done, and Nick looked to get an extension to the contract, and Bill Shamus at DST made sure that it didn't happen. So one of the things that having your own business is this, I can get away with saying stuff like that. And the pieces sat there for 4 or 5 years. I'm lucky that only 2 pieces I ever didn't get produced. And we'll see. I've never gone after the Marvel license. I tend to work with people I've known in the industry for years, but I appreciate the question. I'm not sure. It might happen sometime.
Beautiful piece.
It's a beautiful piece by, it was a John Buscema, incredible illustration he did in 1968 for Silver Surfer 4.
All right, guys, we have to wrap it up. I really want to thank everyone for coming. I want to thank all the guys that sat on the panel with us, and, you know, especially Clay and Jordu, who didn't have to come but came. I appreciate it, and thanks all.